Hello everyone, this is Tanya from Professor Tanya Speaks, and today I'm going to be doing a problem effect solution speech. This will be a demonstration for my college public speaking class because I want to show them what a first draft should look like. So it may end up being a little bit unsophisticated, maybe not as polished as I would want it to be, but it's a first draft. And I'm just going to let the camera roll. I'm not going to pause. I have no notes. I have nothing looking at. I'm not going to cut the video and make it better. All I'm going to do is speak. I mean, it's something I know enough about, so I'm just going to talk. I'm just trying to show them what it's like and what the speech needs to be like in order to get valuable feedback. It has to at least be a good first draft that is properly organized, and then you go back and you look for ways to add drama, silence, and all of those things. So join me as I demonstrate this speech. As I stood in my kitchen on the phone, waiting to see how this would all play out, I found myself back in time, remembering the first time I met Kathy. I remember it had been one of those evenings when I had forgotten to walk Sassy, our Basset hound, and I was quickly trying to get the walk out of the way when I saw this heavy laden moving truck chugging up the hill, huffing and puffing. And I remember watching it go, wondering who was moving into the neighborhood, because it had been a while since I had seen a moving truck. But when I came back from the walk, I was absolutely delighted when I realized that the moving truck was parked in front of our home, which means that the house in front of us, which had been empty for the last 6 months or so, was finally going to have neighbors. And I wondered who the neighbors were. But pretty soon, I met Kathy. Kathy was my age, my height, and it turned out that she was in my grade. And in no time, we became fast friends. We did everything together. And sometimes her mother took us to school, sometimes my mother took us to school. We were best of friends. And at the end of high school, we went to university together. And because you never saw one without the other. People called us Batty and Bench. They did. But the night before I left for Toronto for grad school, some friends threw a party, and she and I were at the party. And she got drunk, which in itself isn't a problem, or shouldn't have been a problem. But I don't know how we ended up there. But one thing led to another, and before I knew it, she was bad-mouthing me, telling people that I thought I was a princess, I thought I was all that. And before I knew it, I was going after her too. So we were doing that, oh, you're this, you're that, you're that. And before I knew it, at the end of the night, I said, you know what? I never want to see you again. And I hope to never have to run into you again. I left the party. I took a cab home, left for Toronto the next day, and I never looked back. But here I was on the phone, 10 years later, waiting for her to pick up the phone. You see, my mother called me just a few minutes before to let me know that Kathy's mom had been at a four-way stop when a truck barreled into the side of her car and killed her on the spot. That had left me so shaken, really. That my first thought was, oh my God, I have to call Kathy. And then I remembered, I don't talk to Kathy anymore. But when my mother told me, she said to me, Tan, I know you guys haven't spoken and I don't really know what happened, but I think it's time. And when she said it, I said, oh, yeah, I guess it is. But when I hung up, it took me a little while to decide on if I really wanted to call, because I didn't know what the reception would be like, and I was not about to put myself in the line of fire again. Now, I suspect this is not something, I suspect I'm not the first one who's had to grapple with something like this. I'm sure most people at some stage have had a fallout with a friend that left them not talking. We don't want to say malicing, but that's really what it is. You know, it may have been a childhood friend, a friend from high school, a friend from university, a friend from work, a business partner. But every now and again, we're in this position where someone that we thought would be in our lives forever becomes persona non grata, and people don't even want to call their names around us because they know, don't call that name around Tanya, she'd get crazy. I think many of us have been there and done that. And I believe that it's something we have to start to look at. And as someone who has been hurt by friends, as someone who has spent a lot of time wondering about friendships, and as someone who's done quite a bit of research about the sustainability of friendships, I'd like to talk to you today about the sustainability of friendships. I'm going to tell you the problem, I'm going to tell you the effects, and I'm going to tell you what I consider to be the solutions. So, let me first begin by talking about the problem. I don't think we realize it, but sustaining friendships is a bit of an issue because of three things. Well, I see these three as the things that cause the problem. The first is our inability to use good conflict resolution skills. The second is our poor communication. And the third thing is our buying in to this canceling culture. You see, I think when most of us grew up or were growing up, our parents never taught us conflict resolution skills. Usually, well, I know many parents that I knew, it was usually their way or no way. So most of us grew up with this win-lose approach to conflict. I must win and you must lose. When we have that approach, it does contribute to friendships not working out and not coming to that point of understanding. And then on top of the poor conflict resolution skills, many times we have poor communication skills, where we don't know how to use the right language to express how we feel without blaming. And we don't know how to be vulnerable, and we don't know how to be honest. So because we have poor communication skills and poor conflict resolution skills, then because we're in this canceling culture, then we're quite willing to cancel our friends. It's easy to unfollow, to defriend, to ghost someone, to pretend someone doesn't exist. And when we are open to those three issues, we're open to not maintaining our relationships. Now, apart from that problem, and that being a huge problem, we also don't realize the impact that that has on our lives. Because as a result of canceling each other, we end up with poor conflict resolution skills in general and poor communication skills in general, because we have a mindset that says, I don't have to try. So we find that not only do we go from relationships, platonic relationship to platonic relationship, but a lot of time intimate relationships have the same result, where we don't like what happens, we don't talk about it, we move on. Work, we don't like what the boss says, we move on. And then we become people who don't know how to work out issues. People who don't understand what life is about. People who don't try to make things better. And on top of all of that, we become people with friends who are not diverse. Because after a time, we look for people who we think will adore us, people who will like our posts, people who will make us feel good, not people who will challenge us. My mom used to always say, iron sharpens iron, which is true. We need friends that will hold us to a standard and will say to us, look at yourself, and they will hold that mirror to us. But many times we don't want that, and we choose to not have that. So that's the effect of us buying into this culture, and the effect of us not sustaining our relationships. We lose out. So what can we do? What can we do to change that outcome? Well, I have a few ideas, and these are what I consider the solution. The first, we need to learn to be tolerant. Recognize that we're all different, and because we're all different, we see life differently, we come at life differently, and because we do, we need to expect that there will be differences among us. And if we have that expectation and that willingness to resolve conflict, then that will help. We have to also learn conflict resolution skills. And in addition to that, we need to learn good communication skills. And above everything, we have to learn to forgive. More than anything else, we have to learn forgiveness. So, in conclusion, I believe that we need to really work to maintain our relationships, and we have to work at sustaining our friendships. Now, for those of you who are saying, hold on, Tanya, we want to know how it ended. What happened when you called? Well, let me tell you what happened when I called. When I called, she picked up the phone, and her first words to me were, Tanya, thank you for calling. And oh my God, the tears. I was a hot mess. Tears. Because you know what? I didn't want to admit it before, but I had missed her. I had missed having her in my life. I had missed having her friendship. And in a moment, when she said, thank you for calling, I immediately said, please forgive me for being such an awful friend. And I want to encourage you, if you have a friend that you have canceled, deleted, written off over maybe a minor enough issue, think about reaching out to the person. I'm not saying it's going to work out. I'm not saying they will necessarily say, oh, come, let's do the kumbaya thing. It may or it may not work. But one of the things I learned is that when you forgive, you open the doors of your heart and you allow love and light to come in. So I'm going to encourage you. Reach out to that person. Reach out and renew. And realize that there's a lot of love waiting there for you. And that forgiveness will bring at least you'll get the healing. So let's forgive.